Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the World Explorer podcast. This is the podcast where we take a random prompt and build an entire world around it. My name is Casey, and as always, I'm joined by our prompt master, Isaac.
Hello! So, today's world building prompt is the four elements, the classic fire, earth, air, and water. And I'm thinking, let's take this thing that's been world built a million times, generally in very basic ways, like you might see in something like Avatar, it's people control these different elements. Let's see if we can world build that and put our own interesting spin on it.
Okay, so you want to world build Avatar?
Kind of, or at least the element system.
Okay, well, I guess there's tons of other things with the elements. Let's just not get my brother involved because he'll add elements like time and darkness.
Yeah, I don't want to go quite that far. I don't want to add in like every single element. It's like we got glass and we got sand and smoke and all that. And like, no, just the basic four. Like, let's take these elements and let's create our own rules for them. See what we can world build. See what we can do with them in a unique way that hopefully hasn't been done before.
And hopefully it just doesn't turn into Avatar.
Hope it doesn't turn into Avatar. Okay.
Yeah, that's the goal here. Let's see if we can play with the elements without turning into that. So, do we want to start with an element?
We could either start with an element, or we could start with, say, how people bend the elements. Or not bend. We can't say bend. Bending is an Avatar thing. We want to say, manipulate, control
my second
the
thought was
elements.
like Spinjitzu, but that's a different one.
See how people Jinjitsu the elements?
Have you not seen the Lego one? Lego Ninjago?
No.
It's called Spinjitzu. You've not seen Lego Ninjago?
I have not.
I had so many jokes lined up, and they're all gonna go over your head, so we're just not gonna have them anymore.
Oh.
Cool. I was like, I had like a joke, like, if we could add more elements later on, like they did in Ninjago, where they added it in like season 5, they're like, actually there's more than 4 elements, and people have other powers, and I'm like, cool, this is a thing.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what kinds of, like, how would one control the elements? Like, and who controls elements? Like, is this a matter of you need a certain object to do it, like a magical amulet? Is it something you're born with? Is it pulling magic from the universe around you?
I know, I think something that's not explored as much as like other methods, because obviously being born with it, explored tons. Using another like element to control it has also been ton. But like the one that's always fascinated me the most is when people have the ability to learn it if they want to. But so I've always had this like concept or something, is that you can align yourself with just one element, but you get to pick which one it is. So maybe this comes from just doing too many Avatar quizzes and seeing which element you're associated with, because it's fun. But like the idea that as people grow up, they have to, I don't know, give up 3 of the other elements in order to focus on one element, and then that element blesses them with the gift to bend it. Or, we can't say bend, but to manipulate. No, manipulate sounds wrong. Tame it?
Tame is better, but tame doesn't imply control.
Well, I mean, what if you have to sacrifice the other 3 elements and you have to, I don't know, controlling with permission of an element has always just been an interesting idea for me.
Guide? How about guide? Guide the elements.
Like guide it? Well, I like tame because I like the idea of permission, and I don't know what word would suggest that you're manipulating something but with permission, and maybe guide would do it, but at that point it still sounds like you're, I don't know, like you're actually helping it along, when in reality the element is letting you use it to help you yourself. So I'm not sure if guide would be right there.
Sway.
Oh,
Maybe.
Sway might be
Sway
good,
the elements.
because you're convincing them to help you.
Also, sway, I think, is very often associated with, like, motion.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I like
I
how
like sway.
something might sway in the wind. I kind of like sway.
I like sway. I would go sway.
Um,
Okay, so now that we have that established.
okay, so how does one sway the elements? It's the idea of you can learn it, but you can only learn a single element. We don't have a world of avatars.
No.
Now, if you can only choose one element to learn, is there a way to unlearn it and start picking up another element, or is it you're stuck with it the rest of your life?
Yeah, see, that's always something that, like, there's interesting ideas. I feel like if you start turning on an element to trade in for another element, I don't think that element will be happy with you. I don't know, like, what structure in this world causes it that it, like, relies on people being able to follow it, and I don't know. It's almost like a type of worship, but not quite. And to lose a follower, I feel like an element would be very upset. And therefore, not only would you lose that element ability, maybe you can gain another element, maybe you can't, but you have to risk this one element being really annoyed with you. And I hate to say, like, you'll never be able to swim in an ocean again. Or, you know, if you go to a windy place, you might get pushed off a mountain. It could happen. Or the mountain might just swallow you whole one day. Like, I just wouldn't risk it, but some people might. And maybe they're able to justify it and convince the one element why it needs to leave to follow another element. But it would be a lot of work and a lot more, I don't know, communication. Or
Okay, I like this idea. I was thinking a little bit ago, like maybe this would have like some sort of god spirit aspect to it, and but I'm also thinking like whatever this element is, because it's everywhere, maybe it has like sort of a sense of omniscience, sort of like an omniscient spirit where it's just connected to like all of the element that it is throughout the world. So like every piece of rock, every grain of sand or whatever is the earth element. The air all around you, the air element is always present. But the problem with that is what I'm thinking is if you were to betray one, like you leave air in exchange for earth, earth creates an earthquake and swallows you up, ground opens up below you. If you leave earth for air, air pulls itself from your lungs and
I mean, you have that
suffocates
reversed, but yeah, you get the... Which is why you have to convince one element why you're leaving it, like, justify it to them. Because I do think there is a lot of communication. But I also just... Imagine the comedy in, like, fight scenes where you're, like, using the elements and stuff, or you use an element without permission. Because you do have some sort of control over it, but you're supposed to be swaying with it. It's supposed to be a communication. And then suddenly you're like in a fight scene and you're like, oh, I got this, and you just start using the wind out of the blue, and the wind could be like, I didn't give you permission to start using me to fight, and then just turns it off, and suddenly you're just surrounded by here like, I had it, I don't anymore, bye.
Yes. I like that idea, and also I just came up with another idea to keep the elements from, you know, instantly killing anyone who betrays them.
Yeah.
What if the elements on their own, for most of the time, do not have that much power? Okay. However, in certain locations and areas, for example, on the ocean, the water element is extra strong. Yeah. So, for example, if you were to betray the water element, and then you were to get a glass of water, the water element cannot use this glass of water as you're drinking it to drown you. It does not have that sort of capabilities. But when you're on the ocean, it does have the ability to send a tidal wave at you. Now, when people use the element in their everyday lives or in combat or whatever, like using a cup of water to fight people or freeze something or whatever, that the water element cannot normally do that by itself. However, if you have a human there to help sway the element, then it has enough power to complete a task. So it's sort of a mutual thing where both parties need to be using their combined power to make the element do something. And now if you combine a human with the ocean, like the human is actually in the ocean, maybe in that instance, that's where the ocean is at its max power, because it's a human's power combined with its natural, like, strongest location. So maybe a tidal wave is not something it can do normally, but it can send strong waves. But then a tidal wave is more the sort of thing that a human can do in combination with the water element in the ocean.
I mean, we could go a step further and make it that the reason that these elements are even allowing people to have a sway over them is the fact that they have no power outside of the normal cycle of life and their direction, unless a human's involved in general. So, like, if you're on an ocean, just the fact that you have sway over the water itself, it just makes you really powerful in an ocean versus if you have tap water, like a tap sink running or something. But so the ocean itself never can, like, break free of its confines. It needs people's help. But the difference between, like, our world and this world is that here the elements can communicate with people and get their help, but they want, like, full commitment to the one element. I don't know if there's, like, some war between the four elements, or if the four elements are just, you know, they just want to be separate. Like, they have a mutual agreement not to mingle, and so therefore their people can't either.
This is going to be a little bit of a weird sounding idea, but what if the four elements saw each other more as siblings, where it's like sometimes they can get into bickering, like, arguments with each other.
They're the Greek gods.
Fight each other. They all want as many followers as possible. They aren't at odds, though. Yeah, it's kind of like the Greek gods. Like, they all want as many followers as possible. Everybody should come to my side, but they aren't. They also aren't against each other. Like, they aren't going to kill each other or kill each other's followers, unless maybe some of them had different temperaments. Like, because fire is often associated with rage, we could say fire is very angry and vengeful when you betray it, whereas water, it being much more calm, might be like, yeah, okay, that's fine if you want to leave.
I don't know. Do you want to go with those cliches?
I feel like we shouldn't, though. I feel like we should give them much more unique spins. For example, kind of like how Rise of the Guardians took Jack Frost.
Yeah.
And his element of ice, which is usually associated with, you know, cold and death and, you know, just all around uncomfortableness. And instead that movie made it about fun. Yeah. It made it about playfulness.
Childhood, I think, was another thing.
Yeah, childhood.
Snow days.
Like, that's more
fights.
Yeah, that's more what it would have made it about, where it's usually associated with a much more darker tone, like, again, like I said, death and cold and famine, all these different things. What sort of unique spins can we put on things like fire? Like fire, okay, I kind of want this would be somewhat stealing from Avatar, where it'd be more looking at the side of fire where it's about life and energy, which Avatar already covered both sides of this, so I don't know how we can avoid it, where it's either destruction and rage, but then you go to, like, the sun people. I can't think of what they were called.
The dragons.
The sun, yeah, the dragons are the sun warriors.
The thing about, like, all of these elements is all these elements have the potential of extreme destruction, and also, like, they're all important for life. You can't have one without the other. They've always been balanced that way. But, I mean, we're in this situation now where the elements are talking to people, and therefore they will have personalities, because the moment you make something talk to something else, it's gotta have some sort of personality. But it doesn't have to be stereotype. Again, I feel like they're very Greek god in that they're like the imperfect deity, in that they are, you know, sometimes they have tempers, they're aggressive, they have a little sibling rivalry going between them of who can get the most followers. They can be jealous, they can get upset, they can send people off to kill other people for betraying them. You know, they'll do certain things like that. And personalities, I guess, will develop over that.
But I think for the most part, they would probably still want to get along. And I think that maybe what keeps them together is that they all have one common goal, and that might be they all want to see the humans and civilization thrive, and and they care about humans. And so let's say
it could be
a
the
human
one
said,
thing that
"Oh,
they came together to create."
maybe, yeah." Is what I was thinking was, a reason that the human might abandon one element to go and join another is, my brother was lost at sea and I need to go find him. Sorry, Earth element, but I need to take on the element of water to be so that I can have a safer and faster, more effective journey to go and find him. And Earth at that point is like, okay, I understand. You gotta go find your brother. I release you. Go join water. And whether or not he comes back to Earth afterwards, would that matter? Would Earth expect him to return, or would Earth be okay? It's like, you've joined him. You're fine. You can stay over there.
Oh yeah, like temporary alliances. I don't know, because
Yeah,
I
like
feel. I mean, I guess because there's a good reason with this, you'd have to make that, but you always have to be. You don't. What we want to avoid though is like an Avatar-like character who's going off and saving the world and just switching between elements as he needs because he has like a good relationship with all. I think that it has to be a bigger deal, and I think the biggest deal we can make it is that once you, if you join an element and you decide to leave it, I think that bridge has to be broken. Like, I don't think there's any way the element can give its ability back. Like, that bridge is broken.
I think that it's
probably.
Yeah, I think it's probably better that the bridge is broken, unless. But then again, I think that maybe maybe what the elements would do is they would say, once you, it's like, I understand you leaving, but you can't come back unless you have a good reason. Like maybe there's somebody trapped in a mine somewhere, and somebody's like, okay, I need the earth element now. Would the earth element come back to this person who originally had it but switched out for water, because now he has a good reason to have earth? You can't, so you can only have it once in life, or?
I think we kind of just want to avoid that, because I think what we're coming to is just it's a world of avatars at that point, if you can switch because you have a good reason. I think there should be consequences and like a serious consideration in which element you pick. And if you have to leave it, it has to be serious. Because that's like a tearful goodbye between this element that served Earth this person served Earth for so long. They're buddies. They've done a lot of stuff, but now, like you said, his brother, who might have been a water element, and now he's confused why he's lost in sea, hasn't come back, because, the ocean shouldn't betray them like that. And realizing that in order to discover the truth, not only does he have to find his brother, he has to be able to talk to the ocean to see what even happened. And to do that, he has to say goodbye to Earth and say goodbye forever. I think if we say he can come back, or in the story, we let him come back for whatever reason, it's cheapening the sacrifice. It's cheapening the points. It just feels cheap. And I hate that in a story when, like, something that's supposed to be, like, powerful and meaningful is cheapened because actually there weren't real consequences to the action, or there wasn't a real con to the choice. Because he's making the right choice, but just because you make the right choice doesn't mean there aren't cons to that choice. It doesn't mean you're not giving up something. It's not a sacrifice, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. We probably should have it be, once you've left an element, you can't go back to it. And so,
yeah, and you lose communication. So even if he, like, a cave-in happens and he's now associated with water, him and water are just gonna have to figure it out, because Earth can't talk to him and can't come back, and Earth is confined to its own natural way of life without the help of a human. So it's just, yeah. I mean, this also, I think, introduces an interesting, I like this whole story just because I think it introduces a whole idea of someone unwillingly being part of an element, especially if you pick like an opposite element. Like, say instead of Earth, this person was actually associated with fire and like really strongly connected to it, and now he's switched to water because he had to make that sacrifice. Both water and fire were in agreement that this sacrifice was needed to save the brother, all that stuff. He does it, and now though he's on an element that's very opposite and it's not what he's used to, and the personality of this element is very different, and they're not clicking like he did with fire. So, but he's stuck with water now, and he's got to just figure it out because he needs to save his brother. And I think that's just a really good story.
Yeah, I think a lot of it really would be, because each element has its own personality, its own feel. it would be a lot of it wouldn't necessarily be learning how to control the element, but rather learning the personality of the element and learning to communicate and work with this element. And some elements might be more stubborn, I guess you could say. Some could be more aggressive. Some could be where you have to approach them in a more calm manner. Some it's like ask me nicely and I'll do stuff for you. Some it's like be loud and I'll do it for you. I don't know. Like, I guess we should probably world build like the personalities of the elements.
We should, but I want to ask a thing. Instead of sway, do we want to use the word communicate? Because it is a conversation to use an element.
Yeah, I think so. Because like sway when in this context still feels very manipulative.
You're convincing an element, but communicate, you're both in agreement. Because that's kind of have to what you to be. Because an element can't do anything without you, and you can't do anything with the element without the element's approval. So you have to communicate, and that's what makes this version different from other stories and more interesting. Is that the element's this real thing you have to actually work with, instead of just something you do. Anyways, element personalities.
Yeah. So, fire. Do we want to make fire more about like life and energy and stuff? Because it is always associated with destruction. Or we could do what Avatar did and really do both. Like maybe it has like multiple layers to its personality, where it is primarily all about like life and energy and everything. But if you use it in the wrong way, it becomes destructive and it will punish the user. Like it will punish the human who's using it improperly.
Or another thing, since we have the idea that they possibly were the ones that created humans, we can associate each part of the element to a part of the person and form a personality based off of that, where usually fire is like considered the heart, water is considered like the bloods, your actual skin is considered earth, and then air is like the lungs and stuff like that, like breath and things.
Okay, I don't know how this would connect to like a personality or how you communicate with an element though. Like I guess earth would be like through touch, fire would be through, I don't know, burning passion, and then water would be, how do you do water? Because it's blood. Movement? Water would be through movement, like your flow through your body. I guess kind of like water bending and that Tai Chi. And then air would be hyperventilation.
Or I was thinking it's more like, so heart is emotion, so when you want to connect to the fire, it's actually through communication. And you want to talk to fire. Like fire likes a good chat. They want to sit around the campfire and chat with you. Things like earth, you're right, it's more physical, so like actually doing like actually like connecting, spending like physical time with each other. You don't really have to be communicating, but you have to be with the earth a lot. So going on the ocean or on an airplane or something, the earth would not be happy because it wants you physically present with it. Water could be more of like an adventurous spirit, so it actually wants to do activities with you. It wants to go exploring, it wants to go sailing, it wants to go on fights, it wants to go have a field day, it wants to go see all the world with you. It's just a very adventurous one. And then air is another like more communication based one.
I feel like air would be laid back.
Stuff. I mean, possibly. But also air would run a marathon with you.
Yeah, I think air is sort of like a go with the flow kind of element. It's more like it's not one to lose its temper. It's not one to really get mad if you don't do anything with it. It'd be more like the easiest element to work with, I think, is what air would be. It'd be very easy for people to pick up and learn and use and everything. And if you leave it, it might be a little upset, but it's not going to be super mad at you or anything. It's a very go with the flow kind of element. And so I think that would be a lot of people's first element, if not their only element that they choose because it's easy. People tell them that's the easiest element to learn, so that's the one that people go to.
But I think there's also a negative side probably to air in the sense that, sure, it's easy to connect to air and start talking with them and becoming one with them, and he'll let you do like little things around the house, but the moment you want to do something big or that has a huge impact with air, that's when problems arise because it's such a go with the flow thing that it doesn't want to intervene with its siblings ever. So like a rock slide's coming and you want to move it out of the way to like save a town, air would be like, no, my brother's doing that. He probably has a reason. We're not going to save those people. Like, that's his mentality there. Like, I don't want to interact with my siblings ever. So when you're doing things, you want to use air to interact with the other elements and to, like, stop bad things from happening. Air's going to be like, actually, we're not. And that could be very frustrating for some people. And again, an interesting story dynamic if someone feels... Because air is a very... they're all powerful elements, but there's a... I particularly think air is like an extra powerful element. So the fact that air doesn't want to be used in dramatic ways ever is just an interesting thing to deal with. So yeah, a lot of people, the everyday communicator would use air, but like someone who wants to do dynamic things with their life can't pick air.
Yeah, I think that air in this world really wouldn't be that powerful, but again, it would be an easy one to learn. And it would be an easy one to use. It just doesn't have that many practical uses in everyday life. I think it would pair well with water, though, because when you're talking about something like sailing, the combination of these two elements could make for extremely fast ships that can quickly go out to sea, very quickly gather a ton of fish, and bring them back. Like, the fishing industry of this world would just be nuts because you'd just be catching so many fish.
I mean, food's not an issue in this area ever because you also have earth and you can keep the soil regulated very easily as well. So, and crops could always be watered and like food is not a problem.
Yeah, it's like everybody's got very bountiful food. The only ones that maybe don't do that is fire, unless the fire element you can somehow affect. No, I was going to say maybe you can somehow affect the sun, but I think that if you could affect the sun, that would affect the entire world. So I don't think you can do anything with the sun.
I don't think fire would let you.
No. I mean, well, what if fire, here's the thing, what if fire could? What if fire could do something with the sun, but chose not to? And then maybe there was some sort of major story element that came up where fire needed to intervene with the use of the sun. And this could be anything. This doesn't just have to be like increasing the temperature. This could be something as drastic and dramatic as like balls of fire start falling from the sky, causing mass destruction for whatever reason. Why would the sun do that? Why would the fire element do that? I don't know, but can we establish that the fire element can do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a more emotional based thing. I think if you could convince any of these elements to do something for you for like a personal just a personal reason, a personal vendetta against a group of people who horribly wronged a bunch of other people, the one you could convince to do it is fire.
Yeah.
Because fire connects with people emotionally. So if you've committed yourself to fire and like grew up with fire and then someone wronged you in such a horrific way, or worse yet, an entire people group has, and it's been wronging other people and been wronging other fire. It could be that fire gets is considered a pushover possibly by maybe another element and like they get mistreated, and then fire just has enough one day and says, okay, we're done. If my people want to destroy you now, I'm gonna let them. I'm gonna allow them to, and then they do.
It's not just a matter of allowing them to; it's like a matter of assisting them in it. Because you gotta keep in mind, like fire, like you need both parties to get the most power out of an element, humans and the elements themselves. And so I think that maybe something like fire raining down from the sky, that might be an area where you need both fire and humans cooperating. But the fire element by itself, maybe it just increases the heat of the world a little bit. Maybe it makes forest fires spread a little bit faster. You know, something like that. maybe your campfire will get a little bit bigger. That's about the extent of fire's ability by itself. But when combined with humans and their power, suddenly you can make fireballs falling from the sky.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
Yeah, and again, this is the same thing with like air, water. Like air combined with humans can now create a tornado. Water can now create tidal waves. Earth can create I don't know, ravines. Like just open up a ravine in the ground.
Bring a mountain down just for fun.
Yeah. Or create a mountain.
I don't know. Would Earth be up to making mountains?
Maybe. It looks pretty. But
yeah.
I feel like Earth might be a little picky where you put your mountain. Because if it somehow affects like the wildlife in the area, maybe Earth might have a problem with that.
Because again, Earth is the one that's very one with everything that's going on around it.
Yeah. Earth is one with everything that's going on around it. Whereas fire is that more, again, like passion. Air is kind of careless and it's like air will stay out of everyone's way. Yeah, air's disconnected and will stay out of everyone's way. It's like don't want to interact with anyone. And water is
just living life to its absolute fullest.
Living life to its absolute fullest. It's like
having a grand time, traveling with people. Like I am telling you, if you have people who would get into fights and one of them is like can communicate with water and another can communicate to whatever, the water person's gonna win because the water element's gonna be way more up for a fight than like any of the other ones will be.
Yeah,
like, that's just I think like a fun-loving water spirit that just wants to give its. And it seems like each one of these elements is offering a human a different experience. So water's offering people like actual experiences, like adventures and fun and stuff. Fire's offering people like a deeper connection with their emotions and their feelings and stuff and a way to release that. Air is offering people a way to disconnect from everything, to step aside and just let life happen to them and just enjoy life or just have their day-to-day and be content with it. And then Earth's offering people a oneness with the world around it, a deeper connection with like the nature, the wildlife, the farming, stuff like that.
Yeah, and so I could really see people picking their element based on that. And like, but now you've got an interesting story where, again, once your bridge with the element is broken, it's broken forever. Like that person who is always one with air, like very go with the flow kind of guy, living life however it may go, suddenly needs to take on the ability of water. It's just like, you're going on an adventure now. And he's like, I didn't want an adventure. I just wanted to like, live my everyday life, however life goes, like peaceful life. It's like I wanted a simple life, and now water's like, nope. Because you have to go save your brother who's lost at sea. You're going on an adventure.
Oh my gosh, water would totally be the person to like lose a person to gain another follower to go on another adventure.
Gosh,
water would totally do that. That's the type of person water is. And the other elements kind of just let him do it. Like they're just, for one, air could care less, so he probably only targets air. Air's followers, to be honest, because air also, I do believe air has the most, like people who just want to live their lives with a little bit of help, like being able to blow something towards you to fetch it instead of getting up, things like that. That's air's the one for you in that case.
Yeah, and again, air, like we were saying, would probably be the easiest to learn, and if air is the easiest to learn and it gives you that sort of lifestyle, like most people are going to pick air, but as soon as they need to move a big boulder or whatever, suddenly they're like, oh, I guess Earth is a little more useful, isn't it? Like, air is the most,
like, all of them are. I feel like Earth would be the second most popular just for the sake of farming and stuff, like, or like that connection to the world. So I feel like Earth would also have a very big population. Yep. I think water would get that select few, and we all know who I'm talking about, who would be really into it. And then fire would get that other select few, which I think we all know who we're talking about, who would also be really into it. So Earth and air are just really popular. They've got majority population. And then you have the water and the fire keeping life interesting for the rest of them.
Yeah, and I think that out of them all, I'd probably end up going with water. Like, water would probably be my element. Water just seems like so much fun. But But what does water do to help in the adventure, though? Like,
I mean, you could fight with it. You can go across the sea faster, so it'll do travel for you. It'll purify water for you on adventures, so like you always have drinking water, which is a huge thing on adventures. And of course, you have a companion to talk to, who's just really sucking you up for every adventure and giving you hints and being helpful. Probably like annoyingly helpful. Like there's points where you're like, okay, I get it. Can you shut up now? Helpful. But like they mean well. They're also probably setting up adventures. Like if you go on an adventure, they'll be like, okay, now you have to reset it so I can send someone else on it type person.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the water would probably have two different people going on an adventure and be like, yeah, I'm gonna guide these two people towards each other to make life more interesting.
Oh, these people have contrasting personalities. They're gonna clash so hard. I can't wait.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. Water, on one hand, I could see it doing it because it's going to be so much fun to watch these two people interact. They're going to get along so well. And on the other hand, I see the water going, oh, this is going to be so much fun. They're going to hate each other. And then just forcing them together.
Care. It just wants to have, it's living life. And it's forcing its people to live life, even if they might not want to. But I don't know. I think I'd associate more fire just in the sense of having someone to communicate with that's a bit more in tone to those things than a lot of other people are.
Yeah.
And I feel like I could see fire and water. It's interesting. We've created a dynamic where fire and water are not the opposites anymore. Like, they are very compatible now.
Yeah.
Because they're still, like, fire is very passion-driven, but you could still go on adventures and fire would still help you because if your emotions are connected with adventuring, fire's going to be like, okay, let me call my water sibling up and let's go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think that actually works really well. That's really surprising, though, how those two really did not end up being opposites, but like I said, they're compatible. And then when it comes to the other two elements, like Earth is like the most practical.
Earth and air? Buddies.
Yeah, Earth and air are both very practical. Yeah. Earth, I think, would be more practical when it comes to like bigger tasks. For example, if you want to farm, if you want to create buildings, if you want to pave roads, create mountains, like big tasks like that. Earth is the way to go. But minuscule like tasks for all the lazy people, like you want to whoosh your drink from the table over into your hand, air.
Yeah.
And
it also kind of depends communication wise as well, because I feel like air isn't much of a talker actually.
Air's just got
like he's got a bunch of followers. If you want to tattoo him, he'll like maybe come. He maybe won't. Like you never know. He's the type of person like, are you there, God? Meme. You don't know if he's actually there sometimes.
I think that maybe
Earth, I do feel though, would be very
yes. I think that Earth, it's like you want to move a mountain, Earth is there for you. But when it comes to air,
Earth wants to talk
when it comes
more.
to air will just kind of look at you and you try to whoosh the cup over to your hand and be like, get it yourself. Like,
sure.
He'll either sometimes it's like, let me think about it. Like, I might help you there. I feel like most of the time it'd be like, yeah, sure. But I feel like maybe it depends mostly on like the emotion and tone, like mood of the person using it. Like maybe it depends on how relaxed you are. Like if you're relaxed, air is relaxed, and air will help you. Air is more likely to help you whoosh that cup over. So air is more likely to assist you when you're watching TV and you just want to reach for the popcorn. But if you're in combat, air might not help you all that much. Air might tense up essentially and not do very much, not be very effective. And you start panicking and be like, I don't know what to do in this situation. Like air doesn't know how to fight.
Which means that there is a person out there who would be able to communicate with air efficiently to use air in ways that other people wouldn't. If you have someone who's very gifted in like calming panicked people down and directing and like taking control, like someone you'd probably more associate with water and fire, but who decide to stick with air and actually push air's limits, forces air to communicate with them more, like it's very engaging, like very determined to befriend air. For whatever reason, they've made this their life goal. I could see that happening. Well, I was thinking like a fun story of the four-man band. I think it's a fun dynamic. And the fact is, it's not a 4-man band, it's an 8-person band. Because they all have their element. And it's funny because all of them can talk to their element, but they can't talk to each other's element. And that to me just seems like so many misunderstandings could happen. And it'd be really funny. Like, you talk out loud to an element, and the person thinks you're talking about them, and they're confused, and it's just the whole thing.
But I just thought about something. Imagine someone's talking to air about, like, they get into, like, two guys are getting into a small fight. They're bickering a little bit. And one person who can wield the air element is like, oh, what's that, air? And then says, and then just randomly says, air says you suck. And then then this person is offended, but then next to this guy, the air wielder, he's got like maybe a glass of water or something sitting next to him. Air just pushes it over and spills it on him because he didn't say that. And he's like, hey, stop talking for me. Like,
yeah. And then, of course, he just thinks that water did it, and then more fight breaks out, and then it's just a whole idea.
There's all kinds.
Like, the fact that you can only talk to one of them. But the thing is, I think the elements can talk to each other, obviously.
Yeah, I think that they should be able to communicate
with each other. So that's another
element.
So you have two groups who can talk to each other, and then pairs within that group are the only ones that can talk to each other. And that's a fun dynamic that I would like to see in a story, because I think it could be done
I think
really
this is legitimately interesting. Now, I want to go back to what real quick. What you were saying before about the guy using air in a calm way to use it for like combat and stuff. Because I'm thinking, if this person managed to stay calm the whole time in combat, he's going to be fighting very differently than somebody with, like, say, fire, who would be very passionate about it.
Well, fire
and probably talking a lot. Like, to fire. Air, I imagine, is also talking. Or he has to talk to air.
Air has to... That's the funny thing about fights in this thing. Is, you know how we, like, criticize people who talk during fights? Because, for one, this is great, honestly, for, like, a TV show setting. Because these guys actually have to talk to fight and, like, explain kind of what they want to do. Because they have to convince the elements to be like, hey, we're in a fight. You could either A, let me do this, or I'll give you a play-by-play and probably get punched in the face, but, like, you have to talk during the fight. And I think that's really funny, in that it's no longer something that annoys us. It's a necessity for these people.
Yeah, but what if when you were in the fight, what if somebody became so in touch with their element that they no longer needed to communicate via, like, verbally? Like, I feel like that should be, like, one of the higher levels of learning an element. Like, everybody starts off talking with the element, but every time you talk with an element, you to try and do something, you sort of get a feel for it. Like, there's this almost energy, like, almost magical connection between you and the element. When you say, hey, air, can you hand me that cup, please? And you do that, there's, like, this connection that you feel, and you can sort of recreate that feeling, and air will know what you want and will guide the cup to you without even needing to say anything. And so when you're in combat, like, perhaps some people who are just starting out, they will need to talk to Earth, which can be a disadvantage to them because now you are more predictable because you are stating, like, what you're going to do.
Yeah.
But while the other person doesn't need to talk. But now you gotta ask the question, like, would the elements let their wielders fight each other? Like, maybe if they both seemed to have a good reason, but the two elements weren't necessarily communicating on what was going on. So, for example, you tell the water, hey, this guy kidnapped my brother. And then fire, who is connected to this person who supposedly kidnapped this person's brother, is actually a girl who's like, no, we're going on a date, but this rando is trying to kill me for some reason. There's just this misunderstanding where it's not a kidnapping, it's a date, and so Fire thinks that this person is going to is trying to kidnap this person, and water, they're not kidnap, but kill this person, and water thinks that this person is a kidnapper. And then when they start fighting each other, at that point, would the elements stop, or would they continue fighting each other? Maybe because, again, maybe they don't understand what their siblings are doing. Maybe they just aren't communicating with their siblings, so they continue to fight each other.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, and air definitely doesn't communicate. The air is very hard to reach.
Yeah, and then at the same time, fire is very passion-based, so they're not going to stop to talk. Water is just enjoying the show. Water loves it when... loves fighting.
Yeah, Water's just laughing maniacally the entire time. And because those three...
I think the only element, honestly, who it would be hard to get into this misunderstanding fights with is Earth. Because Earth is the type of person, since they're very one, and I think they're honestly probably a connector base between the siblings. Like, they are the rock of the family. Just putting that out there. And so for that reason, if a fight broke out between, like, any of the elements in Earth would be like, so... Like, maybe he'll let the fight go on and he'll just slide over to the sibling and be like, why? And get it explained and then end the fight. Like, that's something Earth would be doing. But the other, I could see the other three for various reasons just letting them have it, even if it means one of them dies.
Yeah, but the thing is, if somebody is using Earth and then starts fighting any other one of the elements, the problem is those other elements don't want to talk. But so Earth, because Earth, even though Earth is the reasonable one, Earth can't reason with the unreasonable three. Maybe Earth could be the middle ground, no pun intended, and bring two together, but that will generally require an extra person involved to go and manipulate Earth. And when then that human will come in and be like, hey guys, Earth says stop fighting because X, Y, and Z reasons. And then the other two.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, I just had like the really funny scene. So we have like say like, I don't know, Water's fighting Earth for whatever reason, and this battle is going on, and Earth is just sliding and like trying to talk to Water, who's just not having it. He's like, I'm enjoying the show, just enjoy the show. And Earth's like, no, but I want to know why we're watching this show. I don't understand. Why is she attacking my guy here? All he's doing is trying to go get fruit. She's like, it's part of the show, don't you know? And she's like explaining this whole quest she has and what role that his guy's having. He's just sitting here going like, but they're not gonna kill him, are they? He's just defending himself at this point, because I feel like Earth is one that isn't gonna be... and Water's like, I don't know, maybe. It's like, you can't...
It's like, you've been hanging out with air too much.
You can't. And it's just like, trying to process, like, why is Water doing this? And just... I don't know, I think it's just a funny side dynamic, is you have these two, like, epic battling, and then it's just these two spirits, and one's just all, like, happy and enjoying the show, and the other one's just confused.
Yeah, like, this I feel like, however, I really don't know, if you were to write this story, how much you would include the elements actually communicating with each other, because you gotta ask the question, like, what does it take for the elements to communicate with each other? Can they just instantly, like, open the door and pop into the other elements room and be like, hey, so I need to talk to you about what's going on there? Or are they in constant touch with each other? Do they only sometimes communicate? Like, what's up?
I think they can only interact when people of their elements are interacting.
Okay. Otherwise they can't normal.
So if anything, this is another reason why they rely on these people so much. And why Air doesn't want his people getting involved with anyone, because Air doesn't want to communicate with his siblings. But the others, they might want to communicate more and like go on adventures together, because like we said, like Fire and Water are very compatible. I bet they get along great. They're like the two siblings that drive you mad because they like each other so much, and you don't understand why they hate everyone else. And so they have that bond. So of course they're gonna send people on adventures to like interact like a Fire and Water person. So that way they can have chats and interact and have a good time.
I feel like Air is almost like that emo teenager that wants nothing to do with anyone. It's just like, leave me alone, family. It's just...
Let me play my video game.
It's like, let me be myself. Again, that does lean into like the laziness aspect of Air.
I don't know. Has Air ever been associated with laziness before?
I don't know. I can't think of any time. air, I think, has always been more associated with, I guess, energy and beauty. I think those are the two things. Like energy and beauty are the two things.
Grace.
What?
I think grace is the better word.
Yeah, grace.
I think
yes,
it's grace
definitely gracefulness. Like that's more what air and wind and stuff has been associated with. Fire has always been anger and rage. Water has always been calm and healing, whereas here it's adventurous. And earth, I think, has always been more stability and in touch with everything. Like that's the only one that's still remaining like the traditional how elements are always seen. The other three are totally different. But I think
it's important for the story that Earth does.
Yeah.
You know, look, 3 out of 4 ain't bad, and I think Earth needs to be the stable one.
It at least gives some level of familiarity to the story.
True.
If you have like at least one of the elements still remaining the same as what we're used to. Yeah, I like this world. And like really all we've built is a magic system, essentially.
I did it. I think we succeeded in our goal at the beginning, and I'm proud of us for that. So yeah, but that's where we're gonna end it. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about elements and giving elements personalities. And we will be back next week with another prompt and another world.
Goodbye.